Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today, believe it or not, is the 1-year birthday of our friend, the Nintendo Switch, and damn, what a weird year it's been. So if you don't know, I typically do this for all the major consoles during their birthdays. I just kind of talk about them, you know, like what the last year has been like, both, you know, globally, as well as like my own personal take on it, as well as, you know, some predictions, and of course talking about games and stuff like that. So I thought, you know, what the hell? I know people enjoy these. I'm glad you do. So I thought, yeah, let's talk about it, even though the Switch comes out at a very bizarre time. So yeah, March 3rd is when it originally launched in North America. I believe that was the world release date. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so the last year has been insane, and I want to acknowledge the elephant in the room here. When the console came out, I did an unboxing, I did a review, and I did a predictions video. That predictions video got me into a lot of shit, and I will eat crow. I was wrong. I admit that up front. You're never allowed to be even remotely wrong about anything on the internet because you never hear the end of it, even when you admit you were wrong about it. So in my case, I wasn't that sure that the Switch was going to be successful. I was like, I don't know. But to all the people out there who claim, oh, it was always going to be successful, it was preordained, it was magic, you have to remember what it was like just a year ago. Just 1 year ago, Nintendo had a flop of a console, the Wii U, their worst selling platform ever, save for like the Virtual Boy. And all third-party developers, except for a couple like WB Games and Ubisoft, had jumped ship completely. Consumer confidence in them was at best weak. And the Switch itself had all sorts of issues like low storage capacity. It was anemic technologically compared to, say, like the base Xbox One. It didn't even meet that. And we already at that point knew the Xbox One X was around the corner, and the PS4 Pro already launched. So you were like, you're doing everything wrong, Nintendo. And the launch lineup was 5 games. Most of them were shovelware. So it just seemed like, ugh, like how is this thing gonna work? So that's where I was with that. But to Nintendo's credit, they said, fuck logic, we'll just make this work through magic. That's exactly what they did. Because this thing has so far already outsold the Wii U. In 1 year, it sold more units than the Wii U did in its entire lifetime. It's on track to be Nintendo's, I believe it already is, Nintendo's fastest selling platform of all time, and might end up being the highest selling platform of all time. Wow, like, that's insane. And congratulations to Nintendo on all their success. But how? How did they do that? How did they take something, as I just pointed out, there's all these reasons that should never have worked, yet here we are. So I've thought about that a lot, and here's my theory on what happened with that. So I think Nintendo pulled a rabbit out of the hat that was straight like out of something a supervillain, a cartoon supervillain would do. Like, the plan they had was insane. So, in my opinion, what they did was they used the ignorance of the masses. And what I mean by that is, people forget, because we're gamers. Like, everybody watching this video, anybody who would care about my opinion on the Nintendo Switch, probably pretty interested in video games. You are not everybody. I am not everybody. There is a mass audience out there that plays video games, buys video games, that make up the majority of the money of video games, that don't care nearly as much about you and I do about video games. The way I've always explained this in the past is, think about shoes. You own a pair of shoes. I own a pair of shoes. Everybody owns a pair of shoes. That means shoe companies are making money off of you. But how many of you are sneakerheads? I'm not. I don't know any personally that are, but I know that fan base of sneakerheads are super into shoes, and they make videos about shoes, they talk about shoes, that kind of thing. Same with video games, same logic applies, yet the majority of money for shoes and video games come from not the people super passionate about it. So with that said, the Wii U, most people out there who would buy video games didn't know it existed. A lot of them thought it was an add-on for the Wii, and Nintendo used that. They used the advantage of their previous console completely failing and nobody knowing about it to say, hey, why don't we take some of the best stuff off that console, move it over to our new one, and just kind of let people think, hey, remember the Wii and all the stuff we made before that? Now we have the Switch. Wii U, never heard of it. I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, so we have this new console now, and it's got tons of stuff ready to go. Do you understand my point, what I'm saying here? They cannibalized the Wii U, sacrificed it, if you will, to make the Switch work. And it was fucking evil genius. It worked completely. Especially because, and I've defended the Wii U for years, I think it's an amazing video game console with unbelievably cool games on it. But Nintendo is using them. They're cannibalizing those, they're taking those games and they're porting them over. And we'll talk more about that as we go. So right from the get-go of the Nintendo Switch, they presented it as The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild machine. This was a Wii U game. It was developed for the Wii U, it even launched on the Wii U at the same time. They released a Wii U version just for those of us who actually bought a Wii U to have that option, just not piss us off. But really, the way they marketed this and catered to the Switch audience, they said like, hey, you've been waiting for years for a new big Zelda game. Bam, here it is, it's on a new platform, why don't you go ahead and get that? And they made a big deal about that. Even like, because I mean, I think most of us would argue the launch of this platform was mediocre minus this. You had like a Bomberman game that was okay. You had 1-2 Switch, which everyone said should have been a pack-in game, and even as a pack-in game would have been shit. They had Just Dance 2018, and then they had like Skylanders Imaginarium or whatever the hell fuck it is. That was it. That was all that happened. So obviously everybody got this who was getting a Switch. And that was smart because it pushed the console into people's homes right away, even though it's a Wii U game. So then after you had this big game, Nintendo told you like, hey, by the way, you like Mario, right? Well, in a couple of months from now, big ass new Mario AAA title, Super Mario Odyssey, came out in October of this year. And it's a game that's like a once in a generation type of game, yet in the same year, they had two of them. They had the big Zelda game and the big Mario game, and you knew this was coming. And it's like, dude, that's a really good way to market it. And while this did not have a Wii U version, and I can't prove it because Nintendo, of course, keeps all that kind of stuff to themselves. It is really hard for me to believe that this wasn't in development for the Wii U at some point, maybe really early on, but there's certain aspects of it that are just like, dude, that was made for the Wii U. Like most notably, the game has that mechanic where you set up like little flags in the maps, and then when you jump into your like menu, you can like teleport around. That map makes perfect sense on a Wii U gamepad, just to click the button and jump around. Obviously you couldn't do that on the Switch, so they just kind of made an extra sub-menu. But you see what I'm saying? Like stuff like that, it's just like, that probably was in development for the Wii U. It also explained the relatively quick release of it. But you know, obviously I could be wrong. I don't have Nintendo's internal documents on that or anything, but it just seems logical. So keeping the original theory in mind, Switch comes out. It's got this big game everyone wants. And again, even to the newer gamers, like the real gamers, us, that's like, oh dude, Zelda, and if it's gonna come out and it's the Zelda, I need the better version, which is presumably the Switch one, because it's more capable. So you've got to switch either way. And then Nintendo goes ahead and they go, oh, you know, you like Zelda, that's cool, you like Nintendo stuff? Well, 2 months later, fuck you, Mario Kart 8. There was never a Mario Kart 8. You can get Mario Kart 8 right now. You've got Zelda, you've got Mario Kart 8, you've got Super Mario Odyssey coming around the corner. You have all this Nintendo stuff in a year. To the mass audiences, wow, that's insane. Those are like 3 must-own games for any platform. In like the entirety of any Nintendo console's run, you would get the Zelda game, you'd get the Mario game, and you'd get the Mario Kart game. Yet they gave them all to you right away. Do you know why? 2 of them are indisputably Wii U ports, and one of them probably was in development for the Wii U at one point. Now, for those of us who own Mario Kart 8, which was, I'm sure, a lot of us who owned a Switch, or sorry, owned a Wii U, at least you went, well, okay, it's the deluxe version though. So it's got all the DLC and it's got various upgrades and all that kind of stuff. So even we were pretty happy because you could also use the portable aspect of it. It was just like, it was smart, man. It was really smart. So Nintendo got units in the homes right away by cannibalizing the Wii U off the bat. But they still had other problems. They needed to cater to developers because there's only so many times, like I said, you can pull that rabbit out of the hat. You can't just take Wii U ports, you have to make new content. They didn't have any, so they went to developers and said, we need you to make content for our platform as well. But due to their experiences with the Wii U, and frankly going all the way back to the N64, a lot of developers have been like, at best, lukewarm about Nintendo. So a lot of them said, all right, we'll give you a shot, but we're gonna lowball it. One such example, Capcom, they released this, Ultra Street Fighter 2, The Final Challengers. How hard could this possibly have been to bring to the Switch? It was originally a Super Nintendo game. Now obviously, It's been massively upgraded since. I don't dispute that. There's massive changes. I'm not claiming this game would run on the Super Nintendo in its form. But you get my point. This is an older game with a lot of bells and whistles attached to it. But one reason it's genius is that it catered to the nostalgia that this console is basically emanating to everybody. It's giving you all like your childhood, but like upgraded. It's like, oh, I got my Zelda, I got my Mario, I got my Mario Kart. What? I remember Street Fighter. I love Street Fighter. I want Street Fighter. It's giving that to you, and it's smart. Capcom made a lot of money off of this thing, and they're continuing to support it. But Nintendo wasn't done there. They went to other people and said, hey, you know, you worked with us in the past, WB Games. You made Lego City Undercover for the Switch, or sorry, for the Wii U. I keep fucking that up because that's my point. They're so damn similar. Lego City Undercover was originally a Wii U exclusive. It's basically Grand Theft Auto for kids. Nintendo was so big on this one that there was actually a Wii U bundle sold with this, I believe just in Europe, but it was a thing. It was an exclusive, big third-party title. Obviously didn't do that well on the Wii U, so eventually WB Games put it on the PS4 and the Xbox One and the Switch. Same goes for Ubisoft, the other big AAA company that was super loyal to them. Rayman Legends, exact same story. Rayman Legends was originally a Wii U exclusive. And then before it was launched, they delayed the Wii U version and then intentionally made Xbox 360, PS3, Xbox One, PS4 ports of the game. And then eventually down the road when the Switch came out, all right, we'll go back into the well and grab that same game. I'm telling you, man, there has to be something Nintendo did with the Switch hardware that makes it relatively easy to port Wii U versions of games to it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but it would be hard to say that that's not the case. But I guess I'm not 100% certain on that. Like I said, don't have Nintendo's internal documents. It just makes sense. Moving on. They didn't just approach they didn't just go back to the well and go back to the developers who stuck with them like Ubisoft and WB. They went to new developers, ones that never have a history of working with. Bethesda. They said to Bethesda, like, look, we have, the console's doing okay, can you just try something out? And Bethesda went, all right, fine, we'll take Doom and we'll take Skyrim, two 7th gen games, and we'll bring them out and we'll see what we can do with that. And to their credit, it's selling well. People are really happy with Doom. They're really happy with Skyrim. I don't own Skyrim in this case. I actually own way more Switch games than you're seeing. I'm just using these to make certain points. But now Bethesda's on board with it. And the same goes for Rockstar. Rockstar has not worked with Nintendo in years. And in this case, they went to them and they said, come on, put something out. And they went, all right, we'll take an old 7th gen game and we'll put it out on the Switch, see what happens. My understanding, it's doing pretty well. And so Rockstar, in the future, you might get your Grand Theft Auto 5 on this thing. It might actually happen. You might get, way more Bethesda content on this thing. And the goal, I want to make this clear, the goal isn't to just get ports and remasters. Granted, those are nice additional things, but you want to eventually get original content. We're hopeful down the road, but we'll talk more about that in a bit. But those games come with issues. This is an example. Resident Evil Revelations Collection by Capcom, who again is now supporting this thing. They're also now doing the Mega Man collection, 1 and 2, appealing to people's nostalgia. Capcom is perfect for that. Konami would be too if they weren't dicks, but whatever. So Capcom wanted to release this, Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2. Now here's where you start running the factors of like, everybody loves it versus all the real world problems of the console start to run into each other. This is a case where they wanted to give you both games, but the games are just too big for the Switch. So in this case, they said, okay, the physical cart that comes with it is too small for both, so we'll just put one of them on there, and then the second one will be a download code. So as a result, you have this game with a 26 gigabyte install on a 32 gigabyte console, meaning if you don't have a micro SD card installed, that's it, that's all you've got. Making a micro SD card absolutely mandatory for this platform, which I don't like. And I'm hoping that my original prediction that Nintendo would eventually upgrade the Switch is still the case. I'm hoping that still is a thing. Down the road, they make one with better storage. And the same goes for LA Noire. Same exact situation, where this has a 14 gigabyte patch. 2K, for example, has been now supporting them. I mean, people forget, 2K made one game, just one, for the Wii U. It was NBA 2K13. It was a launch title. They never touched the Wii U again. And I was in 2K's headquarters in San Francisco, and they have Wii U development kits just sitting there. So it's not like they couldn't have made stuff, they chose not to. But in all 3 cases, they've decided, we're gonna make the games big. Now, that's a problem Nintendo knows how to work with, because they're the only ones who don't run into this issue that much. They have really good compression methods, it would seem, to get some of these games to run on the Switch, but they've been apparently kind of iffy about sharing that with third parties, which is unfortunate because it would prevent that issue. So I'm hoping that's one thing I'd really love to see, is Nintendo cozy up more in that sense, so that we don't have to deal with these big downloads, because that is one thing that's really hindering the Switch. But there are certain companies that have exceptions to this. There are certain loyalty aspects. One such example is this. This is the kind of thing I want to see way more of. This is Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle by Ubisoft, not by Nintendo. Nintendo did not make this game. Ubisoft did. Now, Ubisoft was rewarded for their loyalty by sticking with the Wii U, and through that relationship of trust, they were able to make this. And I assume it was that same thing that probably gives Ubisoft access to like those compression methods, I'm guessing, because they don't seem to run into this issue, at least not yet. We'll see how that plays out. But this is an exclusive title to the Switch, made by a third-party developer using Nintendo IPs. I would love to see more stuff like this, where they trust companies enough and use their development teams to have a different or fresh alternative take on some of the classic Nintendo characters. As much as I love things like Mario Kart and Super Mario Odyssey and Zelda, you know what you're getting. This, I don't know what I'm getting, but I got something good, something that surprised me. And that's really what I want to see more of, but that kind of thing will take time. But continuing on, Nintendo, again, surprised us all by not only accepting third-party or indie titles, but like really embracing them. I mean, like really embracing them. So people forget that this same model that I've been talking about a bit, where Nintendo will kind of slowly seed out their own titles and just kind of sit back and let third parties make more content, that started in the last couple of years of the Wii U. They had less and less content to produce because they were gearing up for the Switch. So what they basically dropped a lot of developer fees and a lot of restrictions and all that kind of stuff that allowed third-party developers to make titles for the Wii U. They dropped a lot of that stuff and made it easier. That's why in the last year or so, 2 years especially, or well, the last 2 years, last year especially, you saw a lot more physical indies on the Wii U that you would never have seen. And fortunately, they kept that policy with the Switch. So here's some examples of that. It'll do 2+, The End Is Nigh, Tiny Barbarian DX, Solidam, Drop Connect Erase, Cave Story Plus. This game is fucking awesome as shit. Games like this, really, in previous generations, would have had no chance of coming to a Nintendo platform, especially physically. Maybe like on the Wii or even possibly Wii U, you could have got digital versions, but physical ones, no. But they just realized they needed to cozy up to this. And I'm really glad they did, because there's some really quality content here. They get nice, cool-ass physical editions that usually come with like a lot of like physical perks and stuff. And yes, you can get these type of games usually on PS4, not so much Xbox One, but a lot of the time on PS4. But there's just something really neat about having like a cart of it and having it be on a Nintendo platform. Like I said, they're doing a genius job of appealing to your nostalgia, because a lot of these really kind of remind you of like, you know, third and fourth gen consoles like NES, SNES, etc. Now, I'm glad they have that policy, but I'm also weary of it because they've kind of taken it to the next level. One such example, Retro City Rampage DX. This is by Fangamer. This, apparently, I believe this only had like 1,000 copies released through their website, you know, in the limited run games type of style. Limited run games themselves is going to be doing games for the Switch now. Again, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 type copies, and then it's done. That's scary, because for those collectors out there, myself being one of them, Nintendo stuff and collecting, you know, usually horrible, and then doing that is like, ugh. So to anyone who wants a full Switch set, good luck. It's gonna be brutal. And unfortunately, it's gonna get even harder because the Switch has been successful worldwide. And with that comes regional exclusives. Now, to Nintendo's credit, they made this thing super import friendly. There's really nothing stopping you from playing games from other regions. With that in mind, I have been, since the Switch has come out, I've been to Europe a couple times, I've been to Japan a couple times. I know that's fucked up to say, but I travel a lot and we'll talk about that in a minute. But because of that, I have been able to pick up some regional exclusives. One such example, Super Putty Squad, a game that I believe came out here on various platforms in North America, but in Europe, it's got a physical Switch edition. I Am Setsuna, physical edition in Japan. This, despite the entire cover being in Japanese, the game card itself, you put it in a North American or European Switch, it will play in English. Even though it doesn't really advertise that feature. Now that's not the case with all Japanese games, of course, it's just this situation, but there's a lot of exclusives in those areas, and again, to collectors, that's getting brutal because Japan has a whole bunch of exclusives, which one would expect, but Europe is getting really subdivided. Like, I think we're at the point where Germany specifically has like 4 just to itself. So again, to collectors, ouch. my sympathies. Then you have some games that get released in both of those regions but never come out here. An example, the only one that I know of offhand anyway, One Piece Unlimited World Deluxe. I, funny enough, have the European version and the Japanese version. I bought this first not knowing there was a European version, then got the European version once I realized that was a thing. But funny, I'm glad I did it, but this one, no physical edition in North America. Now, funny enough, that was exactly how the Wii U version. This was originally a Wii U game as well. I believe it also had PS4 and Xbox One ports, but there was a Wii U version. And I'll bet you this is a Wii U port. I'll just bet you that. And same thing over there, though, that it got a Wii U physical in both those regions, but not here. I'm assuming there's a reason for that, but whatever. Point is, the Switch is getting a lot of games, and it's getting them out very, very quickly, and I'm glad. That's very, very good. So if I had to make some predictions here about all of this, I would say that 2018, my guess, is that a lot of developers are pretty happy with their sales figures, save for one very notable exception, which is EA. They put out FIFA 18 and essentially said after that, now we're done, we're not doing this anymore. And at this point in time, they have not released anything else, and it doesn't appear like they're going to. Every time I read anything about them, they seem to have no interest in it. But that's EA, and they're far gone, let's just put it that way. So I think that this year is a lot of Nintendo's phase 2 of their plan, their evil genius plan coming into fruition. The reality is, when you break that year down, Nintendo themselves didn't really produce much for the Switch that you could only get on the Switch. They kind of tricked you into it, like I said earlier. And I think that this year they're continuing the logic of like, look, we don't have that much to release, so let's just keep developing stuff for the future, and we will continue to push third parties, and we will continue to re-release and re-sprinkle out some Wii U titles. What did Nintendo announce this year that we know is coming out? Things like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. That game came out on the Wii U years ago, and I'm not complaining. But again, it's that plan playing out. The majority of people who have play video games don't know that was a thing on the Wii U, but they're just like, oh, a new Donkey Kong game, awesome. That allows Nintendo time to continue to build whatever games they're actually developing. But at the same time, because it's been successful with third parties, you now have all these developers making a whole host of games for the Switch. So I'm kind of what I'm thinking is going to happen this year is you're going to have a whole bunch of third-party stuff that's a lot of ports. And you'll have a whole lot of Wii U stuff that has been ported over by Nintendo or even third-party companies who I swear are just fucking with us. Like, for example, the guys who made Hello Kitty Cruisers, the single most expensive game on the Wii U, as hard as that is to believe, it's true, it is. That game is being ported to the Switch. Like, they really want to bury that console. And that's another reason, like, that has to be super easy to port. There has to be something in there that we don't know, because why else would you do Hello Kitty Cruisers? I don't know, but they're doing it. And Nintendo themselves is doing it, as mentioned before. And so I think that that's the plan. I think the plan is just see what third-party developers make throughout the year. I'm hoping for more of your, Mario Rabbids type of games, where it's like original content produced by major companies. But I think we're going to get a lot of these, where they're ports from other generations. Still hoping for that Grand Theft Auto 5, even though I probably wouldn't play it that much on the Switch, I still think it would be neat to be there. Probably the most original stuff you're going to get, though, is a lot of these indies. Like, even though these indies exist on other platforms, it'll be very cool to have them on the Switch. So I think that's where we're going this year. I don't know if Nintendo themselves is going to have anything too big until sometime towards the holiday season is probably when they'll drop something. That's my guess. But yeah, so the only other things I really want to talk about is my experience with it over the past year. So originally when the Switch was coming out, I was kind of like, on the whole like portable aspect of it. I didn't think much of that. I was like, I'm just going to play in the dock. I'm never going to use the portable side of it. what changed my mind was the fact that, as I mentioned, I travel a lot. I get sent to a lot of events and conventions, and I'm not home a lot of the time. So my option to play video games has become the Switch. But traditionally, I don't like handhelds. I've never really enjoyed the whole tiny screen thing. And what changed it for me was the nature of the way it works. And I want to make this clear to people, because a lot of people point out something like the Sega Nomad or the NEC Turbo Express or even the Sony PSP. People are like, dude, those were consoles that you could connect to your TV and play portably. Switch is a ripoff. It's not the same. The Switch was conceived from the beginning to be a portable console. It can be docked and used as a console. It can be played portably, and it does it in multiple different ways. The Sega Nomad, the Genesis was never meant to be portable. It wasn't. It was a home console. Sega retroactively gave you a portable version, and there's bugs with that. A lot of the games where it used text, like the Nomad can't compensate for small text, so you can't really read it. The same goes for the PC Engine or Turbo Express, same exact concept. That platform was meant to be a console and was later retroactively given a portable version. Suffers the same type of issues. And then you get to the PSP. PSP launched as just a handheld. Later on, Sony added a bonus feature where you could connect it to a TV, but it was never really the central focus of the platform. So this is different because you were meant to do both relatively easily. And that's why I said I thought I would just use it docked. But now, as I travel a bunch, I use it logically, I use it on planes and stuff like that. But the other place it really benefits is hotels. So I'm in a hotel wherever. All I do is I bring the Switch, I set it up exactly the way you see it. It's just the tablet aspect of it. I usually disconnect the Joy-Cons. And then I connect the Pro Controller, and it's just a portable screen for my games. That's how I've been playing a lot of stuff, and that's why it's grown on me the most, because I don't really consider it a handheld. Even though I can do that, I treat it more like a portable console. And so that's been the way it's been for me, and I'm thinking that that's also how it's been for a lot of people. Not as much on the travel side of things, but just the ability to use it in multiple situations, where you can bring it on a plane, you can bring it on a bus, the portability of it is great, but also in the home, you can play it on your TV, or if the parents or whatever, in the case of you have kids, they're doing something on the TV, the kid can just sit there on the couch and play it, or stuff like that. Originally, I was of the logic that it really wasn't that portable, and I still kind of stand by that because it's bigger than like your phone, but at the same time, I just stick it in a travel case. But then again, I'm kind of a freak because I always have to have a lot of luggage with me anyway. So I don't know, to someone who travels lighter than I do, how that actually plays out. But in my case, it's functional, but I wouldn't like bring it with me everywhere, I guess I should say. But yeah, so I guess that's kind of it for the 1-year birthday of the Switch. It's been successful. I hope it continues to be successful. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to more content, but I am weary of fatigue. I don't don't license every game under the sun, Nintendo. Get a little quality control in there. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, I hope you guys have been enjoying it. What are your thoughts on the Switch? Have you enjoyed it this year? Are you going to pick one up? Are you going to wait for some sort of updated model? Because I'll bet you that's a thing at some point. So we'll see. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all later.